If you love intense HFY stories where humanity turns fear into strength, hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next battle. Your support helps this channel bring you more powerful sci-fi stories full of emotion, strategy, and unforgettable human moments. Commander Rowan Cade decided within 12 minutes of arriving at Orlith Spire that alien palaces were designed by people who hated straight answers. The place floated above a blue gas giant like a crown made of glass, silver bone, and arrogant lighting. Every hallway curved for ceremony. Every door opened slowly, as if even the hinges expected applause. The human delegation had been received with perfect manners, which Rowan trusted less than open hostility. Queen Maren Soloth had not met them yet. That part made sense. Rulers did not greet foreign commanders at the docking gate like tired hotel staff. The humans were escorted to a guest wing, offered rest chambers, ceremonial drinks, and a polite warning that the queen would receive them after the third bell. Admiral Helena Marr accepted all of it with diplomatic calm. Admiral Cassian Holt waited until the alien attendants left before muttering, "They are making us wait." Rowan dropped into one of the absurdly tall chairs and said, "Maybe. Or maybe the queen has better things to do than admire our shoes." Major Vera Sloane stood near the window, scanning the guard pattern beyond the glass. "Cade, try not to insult the furniture before talks begin." Rowan looked at the chair arms. "Too late. This thing insulted me first." The guest wing quieted after the attendants withdrew. Marr began reviewing the next day's agenda. Holt paced because men like him believed sitting still was a form of surrender. Sloane checked the room for listening devices and found 3 obvious ones, which meant there were probably 6 better ones. Rowan did not help. He stood by the open side corridor and watched the palace breathe. That was how he thought of large buildings under pressure. Ships breathed through vents and engines. Fortresses breathed through patrols and locks. Palaces breathed through servants. This one was breathing wrong. A service lift at the far end of the hall closed before any worker stepped out. 2 royal guards crossed the same junction twice in 5 minutes, not patrolling, searching. A food attendant carried an empty tray toward the inner wing and came back without it, walking faster. Rowan said, "Sloane." She did not look up. "I see it." Holt stopped pacing. "See what?" Rowan nodded toward the corridor. "Either this palace has terrible choreography or something is being moved without wanting an audience." Marr's eyes sharpened. "Do not leave the wing." Rowan gave her a small smile. "Of course, Admiral," Sloane sighed. "That means he is leaving the wing." He left without making it look like leaving. That was an old habit from border inspections where looking official mattered less than looking uninteresting. He followed the outer corridor past a wall of living crystal and stopped when 2 palace guards came through a side arch. Their armor was correct. Their posture was not. One spoke low into his wrist calm. "Section 6 is clear. The children are being redirected." The other replied, "No mistakes. The queen must receive the human blame before the bodies are found." Rowan did not understand the full sentence. He did not know who the children were, or why Section 6 mattered, or what human blame was supposed to mean. But he understood enough to feel the floor tilt under the conversation. He waited 3 seconds, then followed. The guards moved quickly through servant passages that became narrower and less decorated the farther they went. Rowan kept distance, passing servants' alcoves, laundry lifts and security doors opened with high court access. He was not familiar with Orlith Spire, and he did not pretend to be. Twice he nearly lost them when the corridors split without signs. Once he had to duck into a storage niche while a patrol went by speaking too loudly about a false alarm in the West Gallery. That confirmed his suspicion. Real guards did not talk that much during a crisis. People performing normality did. The 2 guards finally stopped outside a nursery annex marked with a soft gold seal. Rowan saw a woman in pale caretaker robes blocking the door. She was small, elderly, and shaking, but she held herself in front of the entrance like a wall. "You have no authority here," she said. One guard answered, "Authority changed tonight." The caretaker turned toward the alarm panel. The second guard shot her before she reached it. Rowan went still. The woman hit the floor without a scream. That was the moment the strange became simple. Rowan drew his sidearm. Inside the annex, 3 children stood frozen beside a low table covered in bright learning stones. The oldest girl had silver hair braided with tiny blue rings and was trying to keep one younger child behind her. A boy with wide dark eyes watched the dead caretaker through the open door and did not cry, which somehow made it worse. The smallest girl clutched a soft animal toy with both hands. Rowan did not know their names. He did not know their rank, but their clothes were too fine, their security bands too advanced, and the dead woman outside had died too fast for them to be ordinary. One of the fake guards raised his weapon toward the oldest child and said, "Cleanly. Then we move the bodies." Rowan stepped into the doorway and fired 3 times. The first shot took the shooter in the neck seal. The second hit the guard near the window before he finished turning. The third guard fired wildly, missed Rowan by a handspin, and died against the wall with his weapon still raised. The room rang with sudden silence. Smoke curled from Rowan's pistol. The children stared at him, then at the 3 bodies, then at the caretaker in the hall. The smallest began to tremble. Rowan lowered the weapon slowly and lifted his empty hand. "Good news," he said, voice calm despite the blood roaring in his ears. "I am probably not the worst person in this hallway." None of them smiled. The oldest girl backed away and pulled the others with her. "You killed the guards," she whispered. Rowan glanced at the dead men. "Yes, that part is going to look bad without context." From deeper in the palace, alarms finally began to scream. Rowan looked at the children, at the murdered caretaker, and at the royal seal glowing above the nursery door. "Listen to me," he said. "I do not know who you are yet, but someone very much wants you dead, and I am the only idiot standing here who seems annoyed by that." The oldest girl swallowed hard. "Are you taking us?" Rowan looked toward the corridor where more boots were already approaching. "No," he said. "I am getting you somewhere you can decide not to die." Rowan Cade learned 2 things in the first 30 seconds after saving the children. First, royal children did not like being rushed by strange humans with smoking pistols. Second, royal children had very impressive lungs. The smallest girl finally screamed, sharp enough to make Rowan wince. The boy grabbed a learning stone from the table like he planned to duel him with education. The oldest girl stood in front of both of them, shaking but stubborn. "Stay back," she said. Rowan kept his pistol low and pointed at the floor. That would be easier if the murder committee was not jogging this way. Her eyes flicked to the bodies. "Those were palace guards." "No," Rowan said. "Those were palace-colored problems." The boy's voice came small but steady. "You shot them." "Yes. I tend to do that when people aim weapons at children." He listened to the boots in the corridor. 2 pairs, maybe more behind them. Names would help. The oldest lifted her chin. "Princess Leora," she pointed without looking back. "Prince Sale, Princess Miri." Rowan went still for half a breath. "Of course," he muttered, because rescuing random noble children would have been too simple. He moved them out through the rear service door because the front corridor already smelled like more trouble. Leora resisted until Sale touched her sleeve and whispered, "He knows the side door." Rowan glanced back. "I know doors, it's a gift." Miri clutched her toy so tightly the fabric twisted. "Where is Nurse Aliera?" Rowan's face softened despite himself. "She helped you by not moving." Leora understood enough to hate him for saying it that way. "You're lying." "No," Rowan said. "I'm making the truth smaller because we have to run." That did not comfort them, but it moved them. The passage beyond the nursery was narrow and lined with pearl-colored pipes that hummed with palace air. Rowan had no map, only instinct, direction, and the simple rule that assassins usually ran toward power while servants ran toward usefulness. He chose useful. Down one level across a laundry bridge past a row of steam tanks. Behind them, a voice shouted in the nursery. "The heirs are gone." Another replied, "Find the human. Leave enough evidence." That sentence made the rest of the night click one piece closer together. Rowan still did not know the whole shape, but he knew the frame now. Kill heirs, blame humans, break talks, maybe start war. Elegant if one ignored the dead children part, which Rowan personally found difficult to ignore. Leora heard the voices too. They said human. Rowan answered, "Yes, very rude of them. I usually prefer being blamed after breakfast." Sale stared at him. "Are you making jokes?" "Only because screaming would waste air." They reached a storage alcove where old ceremonial lanterns had been packed in padded crates. Rowan stopped to check the corridor ahead. Bad choice. The children took the pause as a chance. Leora grabbed a palm-sized crystal block from a crate and swung it with every bit of royal determination she had. It hit Rowan above the temple with a hard crack. Stars burst across his vision. He staggered back, caught the wall, and barely kept from dropping his pistol. "Ow," he said, blinking blood from one eye. That was emotionally uncalled for. Leora grabbed Miri's hand. "Run." Sale hesitated only a second, then followed. Rowan let out a breath that might have been a laugh if his skull had not been ringing. Wonderful. Saved the heirs. Assaulted by the heirs. Diplomacy continues to amaze. He pushed away from the wall and went after them, slower than he wanted, because the corridor kept tilting in ways corridors were not supposed to tilt. The children were fast but scared fast, which meant careless. They turned toward the brighter hall because fear likes light. Rowan heard more boots from that direction and cursed under his breath. Wrong way, little royalty. Above them, in the guest wing, the frame was already tightening. Admiral Helena Mar stood with both hands flat on the meeting table while 8 armed palace guards aimed rifles at the human delegation. Admiral Cassian Holt looked furious enough to start a war with furniture. Major Vera Sloane stayed very still, watching angles, counting weapons. Lord Sarak Vayer entered with the calm of a man who had rehearsed sorrow. "The Queen has been informed," he said. "Commander Rowan Cade has murdered palace staff and taken the royal heirs." Mar's face did not change, but her voice dropped. "That is false." Sarak showed them a security still. Rowan leaving the guest wing, then another of dead guards near the nursery, carefully cropped, perfectly timed. Holt said, "That proves nothing except your palace is bad at doors." One guard slammed a rifle butt into his stomach. Mar moved half a step. Sloane caught her wrist. "Not yet," she whispered. Queen Maren Saloth received the accusation in the Eastern War Chamber while still fastening her ceremonial armor. She had not even met the humans yet. She had returned early from border inspection and expected difficult talks, not blood in her children's wing. Captain Rayleigh Dorn stood beside her, face rigid. Admiral Kersh Von, commander of the Royal Fleet, spoke with controlled anger. "A human officer leaves their wing. Palace guards are dead. The heirs are missing. We must assume hostile extraction." Maren's hand closed around the edge of the table hard enough to make the metal sing. "Assume nothing. Find them." Lord Sarak bowed his head. "Majesty, the remaining human commanders are contained. If the children are harmed, if my children are harmed," Maren said, turning eyes like winter glass on him, "there will be no language old enough for what follows." Sarak lowered his gaze, but not before Rayleigh saw the smallest flicker of satisfaction. It was gone too quickly to name. But soldiers survived by noticing what courtiers thought invisible. Below, Leora, Sale, and Miri ran straight into salvation that was not salvation at all. 3 palace guards appeared at the end of the bright hall. Their armor gleamed correct. Their voices were soft. "Highnesses," the front guard said, kneeling, "you are safe. Come with us. Your mother sent us." Miri sobbed with relief and stepped forward. Leora held her back. Sale stared at the guard's shoulder crest. Rowan arrived at the corner just in time to see the smallest wrong detail. The guard called Leora Highness, not First Tide, the formal emergency title he had heard whispered by the murdered caretaker before she died. The guard smiled too gently and opened his arms. "Quickly now, the human is dangerous." Rowan wiped blood from his brow, raised his pistol, and said from the shadows, "To be fair, tonight that part is mostly true." The 3 guards turned toward Rowan in the same smooth motion, and that was the second thing wrong with them. Real palace guards would have split attention between the royal children and the armed stranger. These men forgot the children for half a second, like their masks had slipped and only the threat mattered. Rowan saw it, and so did Sale. The boy's fingers tightened around Miri's sleeve. "You said Mother sent you," Sale whispered. The front guard smiled without looking at him. "She did." Rowan stepped fully into the hall, blood running down one side of his face from Leora's excellent contribution to diplomacy. "That's touching." "Did she also tell you to use the wrong emergency title?" The guard's smile vanished. Leora looked from the guard to Rowan, and confusion hit her harder than fear. "What is he talking about?" Rowan kept his pistol steady. "I'm talking about the fact that these gentlemen are lying, and I would really appreciate it if everyone under the age of 12 stopped making my job harder." The front guard moved first, not toward Rowan, but toward Miri. That ended the conversation. Rowan fired once and drove him backward into the wall before he could grab her. The other 2 drew weapons instantly. Rowan shoved himself off the corner, fired low, and hit the second guard through the knee joint. The third got a shot off. The blast clipped Rowan's shoulder and spun him half sideways into a carved pillar. Pain tore down his arm, but he stayed up because the children were still in the open. "Run left," he snapped. Leora froze. Sale grabbed her wrist. "Left," he shouted, and for once she obeyed him. The children dived behind a row of low ceremonial statues as the third guard advanced. Rowan threw his empty sidearm at the man's visor, used the half-second of flinch to close distance, and slammed him throat first into the pillar. The guard dropped his rifle. Rowan caught it before it hit the floor. "See," he gasped. "Teamwork, terrible circumstances but promising growth." Then the real team arrived. 2 more soldiers came from the far arch, and behind them walked a taller man in darker armor with a split gold mark across his chest. Strike Captain Malric Thane. Rowan did not know his name yet, but he knew command presence when it entered a room. Thane looked at the dead and wounded guards, then at Rowan, then at the children hiding behind the statues. "You have been inconvenient," he said. Rowan adjusted his grip on the stolen rifle and felt blood slide under his collar. "I've been called worse during breakfast." Thane tilted his head. "You do not understand what you are interrupting," Rowan said. "People keep saying that tonight, and somehow it keeps meaning child murder." Thane's expression did not move. "The Queen's reign ends if her bloodline becomes a human crime. That is history. You are only noise inside it." Rowan nodded slowly. That sounded rehearsed. Did you practice in a mirror, or does treason come with speeches? The fight became brutal because Thane stopped wasting time. One soldier fired from the right while the other advanced low from the left, forcing Rowan away from the children. Rowan shot the left attacker twice but took a hard strike to the ribs from the right before he could reset. Air left him. The rifle almost slipped. Thane crossed the distance fast, blade flashing from his wrist armor. Rowan barely blocked with the rifle's frame. Sparks snapped between them. "You are trained," Thane said. Rowan grunted and drove a knee into his armor. "You are observant. We should start a club." Thane hit him in the side with enough force to send him across the floor. Leora gasped. Miri covered her mouth. Sale looked like he had finally realized something terrible. Rowan was not winning easily. He was paying for every second. The soldier Rowan had not finished rose behind him with a short pistol. Leora saw it first. Her mouth opened but no sound came. Rowan was on one knee trying to stand, focused on Thane. The soldier aimed at the back of his head. Sale moved before fear could stop him. He snatched one of the heavy ceremonial stones from the display base and hurled it with both hands. It struck the soldier's wrist, not hard enough to break it, but hard enough to ruin the shot. The blast hit the ceiling. Rowan turned, saw the opening, and fired the stolen rifle from the floor. The soldier went down. Rowan looked at Sale for one stunned second. "Good throw," he said. "Remind me never to annoy your family again." Thane attacked in that second and carved the rifle apart. Rowan lost the weapon and took the blade across his side. He slammed back into the statue base, blood blooming dark under his jacket. The children saw it. This time they did not run. Miri started crying soundlessly. Leora stood in front of her again, but now she was facing Thane, not Rowan. Thane noticed. "Move aside, heirs." Leora's voice shook. "No." Thane almost seemed disappointed. "Bravery is wasted on children." Rowan pushed himself upright with one hand against the broken statue. "Funny," he said, voice rough. "I was thinking cruelty is wasted on adults." Thane raised his blade. Rowan had no gun, one working arm, and too much blood on the floor. Behind him, more boots echoed from another corridor. The trap was closing again. He glanced back at the children and said, "When I say drop, you drop. No arguments. I've already been hit in the head once tonight." Then Thane came for him. Thane came in fast, blade low, body angled so Rowan could not read whether the strike was meant for his ribs or throat until it was too late. Rowan did the only thing left that made sense. He dropped before telling the children to. The blade cut air above his head and sparked against the statue behind him. "Drop," he shouted. Leora pulled Miri down. Sale threw himself flat a heartbeat later. Rowan rolled under Thane's arm, caught the broken base of the ceremonial statue with both hands, and drove it into the captain's knee joint. Thane staggered but did not fall. Rowan's injured side screamed. He came up halfway, took a punch to the jaw, and saw the corridor blur white for a second. "You are very committed," Rowan muttered, spitting blood. Thane raised the blade again. "You should have stayed in your room." Rowan gave him a broken smile. "I tried." The chairs were hostile. The second attacker rushed from behind Thane, weapon raised toward the children. Leora saw him and froze, but Sale did not. The boy grabbed the same stone he had thrown before and slammed it into the attacker's ankle. It was a small blow, clumsy and desperate, but it made the soldier stumble. Rowan used the moment. He yanked the fallen rifle strap around the man's wrist, pulled him off balance, and drove him face first into the floor. Before the soldier could recover, Rowan kicked his weapon under a bench. "Sale," Rowan said, breathing hard. "Excellent. Terrible form, but excellent." Sale looked terrified and proud at the same time. Thane lunged again. Rowan blocked with his forearm and felt something tear under the band of muscle near his shoulder. He shoved back, but the captain was stronger, fresher, and armored. The blade slid toward Rowan's chest inch by inch. Then Miri screamed. Not from fear this time, from anger. She threw her soft royal cloak over Thane's helmet. It did nothing useful as a weapon, but it blinded him for half a second. Leora moved next. She kicked the fallen rifle toward Rowan. He caught it with his boot, flipped it up badly, almost dropped it, then fired from the hip. The shot hit Thane's chest plate and knocked him backward into the wall. Not dead, not even close, but down. Rowan pointed the rifle at him and said, "Stay." Thane tried to rise. Rowan fired again, this time into the floor beside his head. That was the polite version. More boots echoed from the far hall. Rowan looked at the children. "Now we leave." Leora stared at the wounded captain. "Is he dead?" "No." "Why not?" Rowan wiped blood from his eye. "Because I'm busy and murder requires paperwork." He grabbed the children into motion, not gently but not cruelly, pushing them toward a maintenance hatch behind the statue row. Sale helped him open it because Rowan's left hand was shaking too badly to manage the latch. They crawled through into a lower service chamber filled with heat pipes, spare filters, and old cleaning drones stacked like dead insects. Rowan sealed the hatch behind them and dragged a metal shelf in front of it. Only then did his legs fail. He slid down the wall and left a dark smear behind him. For a moment, the children simply stared. The strange human who had killed guards in front of them chased them, bled for them, joked at the worst possible moments, and kept getting back up was now on the floor, breathing through his teeth. Miri moved first. She took off her sash and pressed it against the wound in his side with both hands. Rowan flinched. Ow, good instinct. Horrible technique. Miri's lip trembled. Do not die. I am trying very hard to avoid it. Leora knelt beside him, face pale but steady. You were not taking us. Rowan opened one eye. No, you were protecting us. That was the general theme, yes. Sale stood by the hatch listening. They will come again. Rowan nodded. Smart child. Deeply inconvenient but smart. He reached for the rifle, then stopped when his hand shook too much. Leora saw it and picked up the weapon. It was too large for her, almost absurd in her arms. Rowan said, Do not point that at anything you are not emotionally prepared to destroy. She lowered it at once. Then what do I do? Guard the door with confidence. Most people cannot tell the difference. Above them, Queen Maren Salath stood in the war chamber while the human delegation remained under armed watch. Lord Sarek Vayer had brought more images now. Rowan in the nursery corridor, dead palace guards, blood on the floor, the missing heirs. Admiral Helena Mar watched the display and said coldly, These images are cropped. Sarek turned to her. Convenient accusation. Admiral Cassian Holt, still holding one arm across his bruised stomach, said, So is treason. The guards raised weapons. Major Vera Sloane did not move, but her voice cut through the room. If Cade wanted royal children dead, they would be dead already. If he wanted leverage, he would have contacted us. He has done neither. That means he is either dead, trapped, or saving your palace from itself. Admiral Kershvan snarled, You expect us to trust a missing human commander? Mar answered, No. I expect you to ask why your own palace systems failed exactly when we arrived. Queen Maren turned slowly toward Sarek. Why did they fail? Sarek bowed. Human interference remains the most likely cause. Captain Rayleigh's Dorn, silent until now, stepped forward with a security slate. Majesty, one nursery caretaker was killed before any human reached the corridor. The timestamp has been altered. The chamber went still. Sarek's eyes flickered once. Maren saw it. Her voice became quiet enough to frighten everyone. Find my children, she said, and find Commander Cade alive if possible. Below in the service chamber, Rowan heard distant alarm shift tone and managed a weak smile. Good news, he whispered. The children leaned closer. What? Leora asked. Rowan shut his eyes for half a second. Someone upstairs finally started thinking. Rowan Cade woke because Miri slapped his cheek with the full panic of a royal child who had not been trained in medical care and had decided violence was close enough. Do not sleep, she whispered fiercely. Rowan opened one eye. That is usually my line. She pressed the sash harder against his side. Pain snapped through him and cleared some of the fog. Leora was still near the hatch with the rifle lowered safely but held like a sacred object she hated. Sale had climbed onto a storage crate and was peering through a narrow service slit into the corridor beyond. There are two coming, he said. Maybe three. They are checking doors. Rowan forced himself upright and almost blacked out. Wonderful. I was worried we were getting bored. Leora looked at him. Can you fight? Rowan glanced at the blood on his uniform, the shaking in his hand, and the rifle too far away to grab cleanly. I can be rude for a little longer. Sale slid down from the crate. That is not an answer. It is the only one I can currently afford. The attackers reached the chamber faster than Rowan hoped and slower than fear expected. They did not cut through the hatch at first. They listened. Professionals. Rowan liked that less. He motioned the children behind the filter stacks. Leora shook her head. He pointed harder. She obeyed but badly because she stayed where she could still see him. The hatch creaked once under pressure. Then a voice outside said, Commander Cade, open the door and release the heirs. The Queen has ordered your death if they are harmed. Rowan looked at the children and whispered, That is a very specific lie. He raised his voice. If the Queen ordered that, tell her I want a second opinion. A pause. Then the hatch charge blew. The blast knocked the shelf inward and filled the chamber with white dust. Rowan fired through the smoke before he saw shapes, not to hit, but to make them stop trusting the doorway. One attacker fell back with a curse. Another rolled inside low. Leora screamed, but Sale grabbed her sleeve and pulled her down before the shot crossed the room. Rowan threw a cleaning drone at the nearest soldier's face. It bounced uselessly, but the soldier flinched anyway. That was sentimental, Rowan muttered, then lunged and drove his shoulder into the man's chest. It was a bad idea. His side opened again. He tasted blood. The soldier hammered him into the wall. Rowan hooked one foot behind the man's leg and dragged them both down. A second rebel got past him and moved toward the filter stacks. Miri froze. Leora lifted the rifle but could not aim it. Sale acted first. He slapped the emergency light control, plunging the chamber into flashing blue-dark pulses. The rebel turned toward the sudden light shift, and Leora swung the rifle like a club into his helmet. It did not knock him out, but it ruined his balance. Miri grabbed a heavy coolant gauge from the floor and hit his hand when he reached for her. The weapon fell. Rowan, fighting from the floor, saw the opening and kicked the dropped pistol toward Sale. "Do not touch the trigger," he barked. "Kick it under the vent." Sale did. The rebel cursed and lunged for the boy. Rowan dragged himself up and crashed into him from the side, both of them slamming into the filter housing. Something in Rowan's ribs shifted wrong. He nearly screamed. Instead he said, "I am becoming extremely tired of your palace hospitality." The third attacker entered then, and Rowan knew immediately this one was different. Not bigger, not louder, just more careful. He wore the split gold mark Rowan had seen on Thane's armor, a second command cell. The man aimed at Rowan's head, not the children. "Enough," he said. "You have served your purpose. Dead human. Dead heirs, simple story." Rowan leaned against the filter wall, barely standing. "You people keep explaining the plot. It's helpful but arrogant." The rebel fired. Rowan moved too slowly. The shot caught him across the thigh and dropped him to one knee. Leora shouted, "No!" The rebel shifted aim toward her. That was his mistake. Miri threw the coolant gauge again with both hands. It hit his visor hard enough to crack the lower lens. He turned, furious, and Sale yanked open the floor purge valve Rowan had pointed out minutes earlier. Pressurized vapor exploded upward between the rebel's legs. He stumbled blind. Rowan used the last clean motion left in his body, grabbed the fallen rifle and fired once. The rebel hit the floor and did not move. For 3 seconds there was only steam and breathing. Then Leora and Sale dragged Rowan behind the filter stack with more courage than strength. Miri pressed both hands to his side again, crying now but still working. "You said you would not die." Rowan blinked at her. "I said I was trying." "There is a difference." Leora's voice shook. "Stop joking. Can't. Medical condition." Sale looked through the service slit and went stiff. "More are coming, but not the same." Rowan tried to lift his head. "How many?" "Many." The wall beyond the hatch lit with royal blue. A command voice echoed through the corridor. "Weapons down. Royal Guard." Rowan exhaled. "About time." Queen Maren entered through the smoke with Captain Rayleigh on one side and Admiral Kersh Von on the other, both weapons raised. For one terrible second the scene looked exactly like the lie. Dead palace soldiers. A wounded human commander holding a rifle. Her children behind him stained with blood. Kersh leveled his weapon. "Step away from the heirs." Rowan gave a tired laugh that broke into a cough. "I would love to, Admiral, but the floor and I are in negotiations." Maren's eyes moved to Leora, then Sale, then Miri. "Come here," she said, voice almost breaking. The children ran, but not to her first. They rushed to Rowan and grabbed him like he might disappear. Leora turned toward her mother, crying now. "He saved us," she said. "We ran from him and he still came back." Maren lowered her weapon hand slowly. The room became silent around that truth. Queen Maren Saloth did not move for several seconds after Leora spoke. The smoke drifted between her and Rowan Cade, thin and gray, carrying the smell of burned wiring, blood, and lies finally breaking apart. Her children clung to the wounded human as if he were the last wall left standing in the palace. That more than any report, more than any recording, told her what had happened. Admiral Kersh Von kept his weapon half raised, caught between duty and the impossible picture in front of him. Captain Rayleigh lowered his first. "Majesty," he said quietly, "the dead soldiers carry no active royal command tags. Their armor signatures were falsified." Maren's eyes stayed on Rowan. "Commander Cade," she said, and for the first time his name carried no accusation. Rowan tried to straighten, failed, and leaned harder against the filter housing. "Your Majesty," he said, voice thin with pain, "before anyone resumes threatening me, I would like to formally complain about your guest accommodations." Miri sobbed once and pressed her face against his sleeve. Sale held up the cracked rebel comm device with both hands. "They were not Mother's guards," he said quickly. "They called Leora wrong. They knew where we ran. This came from one of them." Rayleigh took the device, scanned it, and his expression darkened. "Private court channel," he said, "masked through domestic command." Kersh turned sharply. "Who has that access?" Rayleigh looked at the Queen. "Lord Serac Vayer." Maren's face changed then, not into rage, but into something colder and far more dangerous. "Seal the war chamber," she said. "No one leaves. Take Serac alive." Kersh bowed once and moved, shame already entering his posture. He had almost killed the man who saved the heirs because the lie had been built from facts arranged like blades. In the war chamber above, Lord Serac was still speaking when the royal guard turned their weapons toward him. Majesty must act before the humans regroup, he was saying. Delay only gives them time to hide the bodies. Admiral Helena Marr stood under guard beside Cassian Holt and Major Vera Sloan, her face controlled but her eyes sharp. When Rayleigh entered with the comm device in hand, Marr looked at Serac and said, "That looks uncomfortable." Holt, still bruised from earlier, gave a humorless smile. "I told you treason had posture." Serac tried to step back. "This is absurd. The human commander was found with the heirs." Rayleigh activated the device. A recorded burst filled the chamber. Serac's own rooted command mark appeared with orders to redirect nursery security, falsify guard records, and prepare human blame language before the bodies were found. The silence after it was absolute. Merrin entered at the far door with her children behind her and Rowan being half-carried by 2 medics because he had refused a stretcher until Leora threatened to order one. Serac went pale. "Majesty, I can explain." Merrin looked at him as if he had become something beneath language. "You plan to murder my children and use their blood to start a war." Rowan, barely conscious, lifted one finger. "For the record, terrible plan. Very dramatic, poor execution." No one laughed, but Holt looked like he wanted to. Serac was seized before he could reach the side door. 2 more conspirators were named within the hour. The coup collapsed not in a grand final battle, but in locked doors, opened archives, shaking testimonies, and servants finally brave enough to speak because the Queen herself was listening. The human delegation was released immediately. Admiral Marr came to Rowan in the medical wing, where he was being stitched, sealed, scanned, and argued with by 3 alien physicians at once. "You disobeyed orders," she said. Rowan opened one eye. "You told me not to leave the guest wing." "Yes. In my defense, the guest wing became boring before the treason did." Sloan folded her arms. "You also got hit in the head by a child." Leora, standing nearby, lifted her chin. "He looked dangerous." Rowan nodded weakly. "Fair assessment. Excellent aim." Sale said, "You saved us after that." "Yes," Rowan said. "I am emotionally generous and medically foolish." Later, when the physicians finally allowed the Queen near him without threatening everyone in the room, Merrin stood beside his bed with no guards between them. That was its own apology before she spoke. "I believed you might have taken them," she said. Rowan looked at her. "You had 3 missing heirs, dead guards, and a human commander wandering around your palace with a gun. I have been accused under cleaner evidence." Her jaw tightened. "That does not absolve me." "No," he said, "but it explains the first mistake. The second would have been not checking." Merrin looked toward the children who had refused to leave the recovery chamber. "They trust you." Rowan followed her gaze. "They also attacked me with decorative masonry. Their judgment is evolving." The formal court gathered the next day, not for celebration but for correction. Serac was named traitor. The dead caretaker Nurse Alira was honored first. Rowan insisted on that before any title touched his name. Then Queen Merrin called him forward. He walked slowly, one side wrapped, one temple bandaged, refusing assistance until Miri took his hand and made refusal impossible. The court watched in stunned silence as the Queen removed the silver crest of the inner line from its ceremonial stand. "Rank failed my children," she said. "Protocol failed them. Suspicion nearly condemned the man who saved them. Commander Rowan Cade, human envoy and soldier, stood between my heirs and the death prepared for them. By my crown and blood I name him Shield of the Inner Line, honored protector of my house." Rowan stared at the crest. "Your Majesty, I am not qualified for royal childcare." Miri whispered. "You already did it," Sale added, badly but successfully. Leora took his other hand. "Stay anyway." Rowan looked at the Queen, then at the children and sighed. "Fine," he said, "but I want better chairs." For the first time since the attack, Queen Merrin smiled.